Lando Norris's exceptional win in Miami was a long time coming and very well deserved. Despite a little help from a safety car, he drove an outstanding race and had enough pace to fight the Red Bulls in a straight fight anyway. However, this weekend was far from perfect for him, though it wasn't any fault of his own, after Lewis Hamilton's suicidal Turn 1 move in the sprint race forced him to retire. That move essentially ended the race for both of the Aston Martins and Lando Norris, but Hamilton managed to get away scot-free. Today, I'm going to check out Fernando Alonso's shocking allegations against the FIA and the favouritism for Hamilton. So, don't go anywhere. After a difficult weekend, Aston Martin left Florida with 2 points in their bag, courtesy of Fernando Alonso's 9th place finish in Sunday's Grand Prix. The Silverstone-based outfit's Canadian driver Lance Stroll began the Miami Grand Prix in P11, but a penalty meant that he finished down in P17. For Stroll, it was another bad weekend in a season of bad weekends. He finds himself 5 points behind the potential challenger to his seat at Aston Martin, Yuki Tsunoda, and the pressure will continue to mount with the drivers' market still so undecided. His teammate Fernando Alonso managed to get more out of the weekend. Similar to Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso opted to start on the hard tyre, losing places at the start but soon climbing back through the field. The two-time champion had a bit of an off weekend as he struggled for pace, and his teammate Lance Stroll looked quicker over a single flying lap. Alonso's race was aided by a virtual safety car period. While it was a very short interruption, he found himself near the pit entry, which lured him to take a cheap pit stop, saving roughly 10 seconds in race time. The Spaniard then had several on-track battles and finished in P9 to add 2 points to his tally. Despite the poor performance of the Aston Martin car in Miami, it was the incident on lap 1 of the sprint race that Fernando was really angry about. In the madness at Turn 1 on lap 1, drivers are able to get away with murder, as sometimes there's just nothing that can be done to stop contact from happening. However, Hamilton's attempt at Bottas bowling was a very sloppy triple homicide, and several drivers believe Lewis Hamilton was to blame for the first corner collision, and not just those whose races were ruined. Hamilton had started 12th on the grid for the sprint race, but after a very good launch, he made the most of a gap on the inside of Nico Hülkenberg, who had started ahead of him. To make the move stick, he tried to brake late to hit the apex and claimed the inside line, but failed to slow his Mercedes down. He made it to Turn 1 4 abreast with Alonso outside of him, followed by Stroll, then Norris, with the 4 of them occupying places from 7th to 10th. 4 abreast is tight in Formula 1 at the best of times, but with Hamilton torpedoing down the inside and failing to stick to his line, it was never going to end well. Stroll turned in, expecting Alonso to take the apex, but Fernando failed to move after seeing a Mercedes quickly approaching down the inside in his mirrors. If Alonso had turned into the apex as his track position should have allowed him to, the contact between him and Hamilton would have been severe. By taking avoiding action, Alonso stopped a much more dangerous accident from happening. He couldn't completely get out of the way of the out-of-control Hamilton though, who completely overshot the apex, hit the front end of Alonso, pushing him into teammate Stroll, who was then pushed into the rear end of Norris, who was spun around and retired there and then. Stroll would retire on the following lap, and Alonso never recovered either, eventually crossing the finish line in 17th. Immediately after the collision, Hamilton reported over his team radio, "I had a touch with the guys." A lap later, while under safety car conditions, he added, "There was a gap on the inside, so I went for it." Drivers will often use the team radio to get their excuses into the stewards before any penalty decisions are made, clearly what Hamilton was trying to do here. That gap was only there because of the avoiding action Alonso was forced to take, something the Spaniard pointed out over his team radio. Alonso said Hamilton arrived like a bull after he was hit by the Mercedes driver. Another driver who was not involved in the collision, Nico Hülkenberg, offered a view on it during the safety car period. Jesus, I don't know what Hamilton was thinking there. That was a proper kamikaze. Hamilton said much the same after the race as he had during it. Of course, it wasn't intentional to be touching with anyone, he said, but everyone's pushing as much as possible and I went for a gap. But then I think those guys went wide and then came back across, so that's kind of where we connected. The footage of the race clearly showed that it was Hamilton who went wide at the apex though. If he had held his line and stuck to the apex, then the incident could have been avoided. Norris laid the blame at Hamilton's feet, saying, It's obvious. Lewis dived up the inside and caused the incident. Nothing I could do about that. The stewards announced during the race no action would be taken over the incident. Alonso said afterwards he thought the Mercedes driver would not be penalised. "We'll see what they decide," he said. "I guess they're not going to give anything because he's not Spanish. But I think he ruined the races of a few people, Norris especially, which had a very fast car and he was taken out in that incident." This isn't the first time that Alonso and Hamilton coming together has sparked harsh words. The incident in Miami marked the second collision in less than 2 years between the former McLaren teammates. Alonso called Hamilton an idiot and said he could only race from the front, following a collision in Belgium in 2022. Hamilton escaping without punishment this time infuriated Alonso though, leading him to make the claim that the FIA favoured Hamilton because he wasn't Spanish. The stewards ruled no driver was chiefly to blame for the collision. They also pointed out that incidents which occur at the very start of the race are generally treated more leniently. "We're not able to identify one or more drivers wholly or predominantly to blame for the various collisions, or any one of them." Also keeping in mind that this was in turn 1 of lap 1 where greater latitude is given to drivers for incidents, we took no further action. On Sunday, Alonso still hadn't cooled off, saying that he was escalating the incident within the FIA, demanding answers as to why Hamilton wasn't penalised for ruining the races of 3 cars. "I do feel that nationality matters," Alonso said, "and I will speak with Mohammed Ben Sulayem, FIA president, with the FIA, whatever. I need to make sure that there isn't anything wrong with my nationality or anything that can influence any decision. Not only for me, also for the future generation of Spanish drivers. They need to be protected. I had to open the gap because Hamilton was coming from the inside without control of the car. If I do that, for sure I get a penalty." Alonso followed through with this threat and was twice seen in meetings with the head of the FIA, Mohammed Ben Sulayem. He was seen in a meeting with his team principal Mike Crack and the FIA president on Saturday at the FIA's Hospitality Center in Miami. Then on Sunday, he was once again seen in deep conversation with Ben Sulayem. Fernando has always been an outspoken character on the F1 grid, but his latest claim that his nationality is affecting the dispensation of penalties against him is one of his more controversial opinions. However, in this case, it was a huge surprise that Hamilton managed to escape unscathed from what was a terrible move. Alonso claimed later in the weekend that the treatment he receives from the race stewards compared to Hamilton was affecting how he raced. Mindful of how he'd been handed penalties in recent races, he said he didn't want to take any risks in overtaking other cars once he was toward the back in the sprint. "Maybe today I don't get penalised, but I always get penalised," he said. "Today the same thing. I was behind Ocon. I could maybe take a risk and overtake him, but logically I don't take the risk to avoid being penalised. So I tried to complete the race, which is 19 laps, and go back to the team to talk about the changes." With 2 weeks until the next Grand Prix in Imola, the FIA will have plenty of time to consider their response to Alonso's allegations. There is no doubt that they will refute them, as a driver's nationality should never come into consideration when penalties are given out, and any questions as to how Hamilton got away with causing a collision that ended 2 drivers' races will be directed toward the steward's notes. But what do you think of the incident? Should Hamilton have been punished for his move at Turn 1 in the sprint race? Let me know your opinion in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.